Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steve Kinney. I'm an engineer and a producer, and today we're looking at the plugins that I use the most often that are UAD exclusive. Now there are a few that aren't, like Melodyne. I use that on every mix. So if you're not using it, I would strongly suggest looking into it. It's really gonna help you tighten up your vocals. Now I did make a video on that, which you can check out here. But for now, we are strictly looking at the plugins that I use. I'm probably going to shy away from demoing them in this video, but I will talk about them a bit. If you guys are new to the channel, it really helps me out when you support the channel, so please hit the like button, subscribe, and don't forget to leave a comment below. Let me know if you agree with my choices, and let me know what your favorite plugins are as well. Also, check out my Console Classic Sessions pack. It's available now. It's based off of the original legacy plugins that come with all Apollo interfaces, and it's a really quick way to learn traditional signal flows in studios. And I also have this awesome new Studio merch, which you can check out as well. It really helps me out anytime anybody supports the channel, so I greatly appreciate it to everyone that has so far. Thank you so much, guys. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's dive right in and let's start talking some plugins. All right, so first I want to address the state of the session that I have pulled up here in Luna. The session that I have here is the same session that I used in the Melodyne tuning video, and I have not gotten any further because I just filmed that one. So the state of affairs inside of this session is that I've imported the audio. I've kind of cut out some of the dead bits so you can kind of see some of the sections there of the song. And I've started to Melodyne this track, and I haven't completed it. I'll do that a little bit later. Now I will be mixing this track in a live stream if you guys would like to check that out. I think I'm gonna be doing live streams pretty regularly here in 2021. So if you guys would like to see that, subscribe, and also leave a comment below. Let me know what you'd like to see during a live stream. Most of it is probably just going to be going over mixes and answering questions. So since this particular track is not yet mixed, I don't have a lot of examples, but it does kind of give me the freedom to show you how I would go about setting it up and what I would do in this session. So first things first, let's open up the mixer. And you can kind of see this broken down here. I've got my drums, I've got a bass, I've got some acoustic guitars, I've got electric guitars. I'll probably rename these. A lot of these names just come from the WAV file while I was building the demo of this track, so they're not really very particular, but I do have them grouped and organized that way. So since I've switched to Luna and I now mix and record exclusively in Luna, I do have to start out by mentioning the tape summing saturators. I don't know what you want to call them there. I do want to mention the tape plugins, and since they are Luna extensions, these can only be found in Luna as an extension, but you can get the plugin version if you're in Cubase or Pro Tools. So for example, I absolutely love using now the Studer 800. I love using this. I think it sounds fantastic, and the thing that I love about using Luna is that it's so simple to do. You dial up more or less of saturation. If you want to take it further than that, you can get very specific. They've got a bunch of presets built in that are pretty easy to use. Of course, if you know what you're doing with the Studer, you can kind of build and craft your own sound from it. So that's pretty cool. And then of course, also on my master buses, I'm always using the ATR 102. I really love the ATR 102. I think it sounds fantastic. And the thing that I love about using these master tape plugins is that they do have their own sort of compression going on there. So as everything starts to hit the mix bus, it starts to kind of tame your mix, which is pretty cool. So the next thing that I really love to use is the console summing extensions in Luna. I think those sound absolutely incredible. I've been really loving using them. I do use API when I want something that's kind of got that punch and the really clean sound. And then the other one, if I want to use Neve, I you know, I'll throw that on for when I want to get the Neve sound. In this particular mix, I am deciding to go with the Neve sound. I think it's going to have that cool vintage vibey thing going on and a nice smooth low end that's really big. So I'm going to be going with that. So far we've got our tape plugins, we've got our console summing plugins, and the honorable mention is Melodyne. So what are some of the others? Well, on the master bus, if we just want to start there, one thing that I always use is the Chandler Limited. I absolutely love using the limiter. And so I've got it pulled up here. The thing that I like to do with this particular plugin is just throw it into THD mode, and I just use it as a saturator. I think it's really great that way. It's simple, it's effective. If you throw it into the compressor, it's kind of, it can kind of be a little too much on the front side, and then if you're using it on the master that way, I don't like to use it that way. So I just throw it into THD mode, and sometimes I'll play around with either low or high input gain. I'll typically sometimes push the input and then I'll pull the output sometimes, depending on how clean my mix is going into it. Other times I'll dial it back and then just crank the output. And that'll be that. I also will throw on another Chandler, the curve bender, and this I just use to kind of season to taste my mix. So once I'm happy with my mix and I like where it's at, maybe I'll just pull down a little bit in the mud region, maybe like 300 or 400 hertz. Maybe I'll pull that back just a dB, or maybe I'll boost you know, like some air, 12K and higher. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll go all the way up to 20 and boost there. Whatever my decisions are inside of the Chandler, it's never very extreme on that one. That stuff's already been done. So take that for what it is. Another one that makes it on there every single time is the Oxford limiter. Now, I know I've talked about this plugin before. The Oxford limiter is absolutely a must if you're getting into your own mastering. It's got some really, really clever stuff happening here. Not only one is it incredibly fast and it will really grab those peaks, but it also has this really cool enhanced curve, which the enhanced curve kind of just boosts the overall loudness. I could probably make a separate video entirely on the Oxford limiter and everything that that can do. But I just want to keep this pretty quick and keep it flowing here. That is typically the final plugin on my mix. So at the very end of it, that's what's keeping my targets of -1 dB for Spotify and Apple Music and all that kind of stuff. So definitely, if you're doing your own mastering, definitely look into the Oxford limiter. Another plugin that makes it into almost every one of my mixes at this point is the API Vision channel strip. I absolutely love this on my acoustic guitars. I think it sounds fantastic. What I like to do when I use this plugin is I typically enable the sweep filter, and I'll turn that on, and I'll usually high pass around like 120 or 100, somewhere in there, wherever it starts to sound good. Maybe I'll go a little higher, maybe a little less, and then I'll play around with the EQ. And then I'll also kind of crank the gain on it until I get some slight saturation. I think it really brings out some character, so that's what I like to do. Another EQ that makes its way into a ton of my mixes is the Neve 1081. The Neve 1081 is a very flexible EQ. I think it sounds good on a lot of different sources, and I think it does some really cool stuff on some bass guitars as well as electric guitars and kick drums. It's also pretty low in DSP overhead, and it does kind of do some saturation if you push it too hard, and it kind of sounds like a, you know, very Neevy. It's pretty good. The next plugin that makes its way onto my list is, I've literally always used this, is the 1176. Now, I don't have a particular variant that I prefer. I kind of find myself reaching for the Rev A a lot, but lately I've been looking into some of the other ones, the Rev E a lot lately. I love the LN as well, the Legacy LN and the SE. They're so low in DSP, and they do what the 1176 does, and it sounds pretty good. I'll typically use those on like BGVs where they're not very prominent in the mix, to save 1 on DSP and 2 to get the sound that I'm going for. Pretty cool. Of course, the LA2A, we cannot not talk about the LA2A. The LA2A Silver makes its way onto this list. I find myself using this all the time. I think it sounds super close to the real thing, almost indistinguishable at times. As well as the LA2A Gray. The LA2A Gray sounds really good. And then the same thing goes for BGVs. If I use the LA2A on some BGVs, I'll typically reach for the Legacy version if my mix is real busy and I got a lot of plugins, just save on DSP. What's next? What do I use all the time? So something that, another plugin that I find myself using all the time, at least I reach for it all the time, is the Studio D. The Studio D is a really cool just chorus effect. And it can go from really extreme to really subtle, but it's so simple. And what I love to do is on my big group BGVs, I'll sum everything down to 1 bus and I'll just throw that on there, and it kind of just makes it sit in a mix nicely. So highly effective, very simple plugin. And for those of you just getting into external hardware, about a week or so after I picked up the Studio D, Clark Technic came out with a hardware version that's really dirt cheap. So that's pretty cool. If you want to pick up a hardware one, check it out. Another effect that I reach for all the time is, I talk about this one all the time. It's made its way into a number of my videos, the Galaxy Tape Echo. It's one of my favorite effects. Super flexible and sounds absolutely awesome on a vocal. It's also incredibly flexible. You can use it as either a reverb or just a simple delay. When you combine both effects at once, you get this very vintage sound. It's awesome. Now, the Galaxy Tape Echo is based off the RE201. It sounds identical to it. It's amazing. So that's a really cool one. I also reach for, where is it? The Lexicon. I talk about the Lexicon all the time. All the time. This makes its way into a ton of my videos. So it's no secret that I like this one, and it's no surprise that I reach for it for every mix. Does it make its way into every mix? No. But I definitely start out reaching for that one. Another effect that makes its way into a ton of my mixes is the Korg 3000. I like this delay a lot because it can be very clean. It's digital, so you can get these crazy effects. But you typically only get a mono source of it. So if you have this really nice busy mix, it's great because you can kind of put it down the middle, or you can kind of do some weird phasey stuff and it still is kind of spread out a little bit. But I like it because of the sound that it gets for a mono delay. If I want a stereo delay, I reach for the Precision Delay mod. Precision Delay mod is awesome because incredibly low DSP, and it's just a digital delay, so it sounds really good. So the next plugin that makes its way onto every one of my mixes is the Suppressor De-esser by Oxford. This de-esser is next level, sounds incredible, and I use it every time, every lead vocal. Not a whole lot else I can say about it. It's pretty simple to use, although it's got a lot of complex features, and you could kind of go pretty wild with it. I think just keeping it simple does a really, really good job. For example, I have the ability to widen the band and of course lower the threshold for the band. I can move the band around. That alone is pretty simple. Then I can change the ratio. I can really make the ratio. The next thing that I really love about the Oxford plugins is that they have a really helpful guide built into each plugin. All you have to do is hover over a control, and it explains the control and what it does, what you should listen for, what you should look for while you're utilizing it. So it's an incredibly good tool. That one makes its way on every one of my lead vocals. So that about wraps it up. I would say an honorable mention for me would be the SSL 4000. I use the SSL a lot on electric guitars when I bust them and group them together. Now, that's going to largely depend on the type of song, what it sounds like, what kind of energy I'm going for. But I do reach for that a lot, and it sounds absolutely awesome. So definitely consider that one. You're not going to be disappointed in it. And a final runner-up is also going to be on a master bus here. It is the BX Master Desk. I think the Master Desk is awesome. It's a really seamless way to get a master, like a quick master. So if you've got like a client that you're working with that's like, hey, send me a rough master, or man, I love this track that we just recorded, can you send me that? And you want to kind of put some mastering on it real quick. So it's pretty simple. You kind of just go from left to right, from top to bottom. So you go through each control, and you kind of go, does it sound good? Yes or no. If it sounds good, move on. And then towards the end of it, it'll really kind of crank and push your volume and put it in that right direction that you want to be able to send it off to the client. So yeah, that's awesome. And I've actually finished mixes and masters with this when some of the other ones didn't really call for it, didn't sound as good. So I wouldn't write this off as just a quick master, but it definitely can be used for that. So I find myself using it quite a bit when I'm stuck and my normal master workflow doesn't work. I'll reach for this, and more often than not, this gets the job done. All right, so there you have it. These are the plugins that I use on every mix, or in the case of some, almost every mix. If you guys like the video, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and also please leave a comment below. Let me know what your favorite plugins are. Let me know if you'd like to see a Console Classics pack based around these. I'd be happy to put together some of my favorite presets and settings that I use and share them with you guys. And if you haven't already checked out the new Sweeto merch, go to my website, check out my shop. It really helps if you support the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys. Until next time, we'll see you later.